Welcome to episode 262 of the Whatnauts Review Show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. My laptop has been overheating lately since I got this very powerful new webcam. I realized the easiest way for me to cool it down is just to flip it over.
Yeah, all the vents are underneath.
I went shopping for cooling pads. I'm like, wait, my vent's on the bottom. What if I put bottom on top? We'll see. This is the test recording.
That's how they get you to critique your own artwork in college. Sometimes is to just flip it over. Yeah, and just be like, all right, does it look like what you wanted to draw but upside down, or does it look like something else entirely? But that's also the weird thing about laptops, right? Like, they're meant to be on your lap, which your legs have all sorts of curves and bends to them. So air can get up in there, but it's flat on a dead desk. It's just sitting and covering all of the vents, and so it gets hot. But yeah, there you go. I'm glad that we could get your laptop working. So
let's wait until the end of the recording. Let's not put all our eggs in one basket here. We have to see if it still behaves.
Melissa, I have in a Anchor ginger root beer here with me this morning. This is one of these sodas that I got about a week or so ago from Pop's Soda Stop, or I never remember the actual name. It's just Pops on 66 or something like that. But yeah, this is an Orca beverage from Orca Beverage Bottling Company. 1987.
Whale did that all by themselves.
Yeah, you're telling me a whale gingered this root beer? So yeah, just something I'll be sipping up. I just spit all over my face. Good Lord, I am ready to go. My mouth is salivating.
Go for it. Enjoy the beverage.
Sipping on. Melissa, in the meantime, what are we talking about today on the podcast?
Last week, I offered you two films. One very much in the vein of Oppenheimer, which was the current war, and one very much in the vein of Barbie, which was the Brady Bunch movie. And that's the one you picked.
Yes, I picked the Brady Bunch. I felt like I felt like this would be the more fun pick, whereas the current war seems very serious and very and like that is the whole Barbenheimer energy, right? But I felt like we had to go for the Brady Bunch, especially since last week we covered something that's all about thinking about death and the meaning of life and stuff like that. I'm like, let's just watch a sitcom movie.
Right. Where there's no more important issues than having two dates to the dance. Not even prom, just a regular dance.
Absolutely.
Had you ever seen this movie before?
I had not, and I don't think I even knew this existed. I am familiar with the GIF that everyone uses, the Shurjan, right? And I know that
you use it a lot personally
from the show. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I know it. I love it. I use it. I've seen some of the old sitcom back when it was on Nick at Night or TV Land or who knows. So I'm familiar with the Brady Bunch, but I didn't realize, I guess that GIF comes from this 90s movie and not the old show. So yeah, this was news to me. This was all brand new.
Wow. This was a childhood favorite of mine. I rented it from Blockbuster so many times. Last week when I gave you these pitches, I was able to hold up physical discs that I own. As a kid, watched a lot of Nick at Night. I loved the Brady Bunch. I loved just an unnecessarily large family. When I was real little, my like two favorite shows were this and Full House. Just how many
Yep.
people can you cram into one domicile?
Too many
That's
cooks.
what I love to see. Right. It's Too Many Cooks is one of my favorite films of my adult life. And I would rent this all the time. And I was so young, I didn't quite get that it was a parody of the Brady Bunch. I didn't understand what satire was at that point. Like, I knew when I was watching a cartoon, like, oh, that's Tiny Toon Adventures or Muppet Babies or something doing a spin on Star Wars or whatever.
Sure.
But with this, when it's like real people and I can watch the Brady Bunch on Nick at Night and go to Blockbuster and rent this, I'm like, I don't know how these are different. I think these are the same. And the movie kind of is
I mean, you're
the
not
same.
wrong.
It's like the movie comes from, I believe, the producer of the original show. Several of the original cast members have cameo appearances. And I was reading that a lot more were filmed and just wound up being cut. Like, it's a very loving, sincere tribute to the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just looking at how preposterous it was if you put them in a more realistic modern scenario.
Yeah, which is also kind of why we picked this one.
Yeah.
Because we, couple months ago, I don't remember exactly when, we read some Flintstones comics that I absolutely adore. I think they are hilarious, and it kind of does that same thing where it's the Flintstones you know and love, but it's a spoof, it's a satire on like modern day capitalism and how society treats their vets and all sorts of stuff. They touch on so much, like what is the role of religion in society, and it's hilarious. And so that's partly why I picked this one too, because I think they're kind of in that same wheelhouse.
Although that Flintstones comics, it's taking a look at that bedrock society as a whole. There's nothing really significant about the Flintstones in that world. I was thinking about these other 90s movies that were takes on older sitcoms, and that's what that live action like Flintstones movie is too.
Flintstones one, yeah.
And this one is, nope, we picked up the Brady Bunch exactly as they existed on TV in the early 70s and just dropped them into 1995. And it's how 1995 is looking at them weird. And they don't realize anything is wrong.
Like that, to be honest, though, also feels like what a good like 90s Flintstones movie would be. Just like, what if they also just didn't sell their house and they stayed there all the way to the 1990s, and it's the Flintstones you know and love, but in the 1990s, and they just have their little rock house and their little
it's just LA freeway traffic and
right, exactly.
There's Fred walking his car to work.
Yeah.
He works at a contemporary oil refinery, but he's the only one who has a dinosaur.
Yeah. Man out of time. Yeah, so basic plot synopsis for the Brady Bunch. There's not much of
the
one,
Bradys,
to be honest.
They exist as you remember them. Just in an LA that has grown up around them. And their next door neighbor, Michael McKean, is a real estate agent who wants to sell their entire neighborhood to build a mini mall on the land. And everybody else in the neighborhood has agreed except for the Bradys. So he's trying to get them to sell their house. And because they live next door, their mail keeps getting mixed up with each other. So he has been withholding mail from them. And when he finally sends it over, the Bradys realize we owe $20,000 in back taxes. And if we don't get it by this week, they will auction off our house and then Michael McKean can buy it.
Yeah. Does not get him points for The Good Place, I will say.
No.
We've
I'm
also
very
been
happy we've gotten to
watching
see two sides of
Place,
Michael McKean recently. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I pointed that out to my girlfriend. I was like, does he look familiar? She's like, I don't know. I think I've seen him in something. I was like, if he's in The Good place. We just saw him. She's just like, oh, wow, because he's so much younger here in this. And of course, I also know him from Better Call Saul. He's in that show too. Yeah, like this, it's. I feel like this movie is a pretty standard / straightforward like 90s movie plot.
Yes.
Like it's not it's not so well, I guess it is. It's kind of boilerplate is like the most like mean-spirited thing I could say about it. Not that I'm wanting to say something mean, but yeah, it's fairly standard. It there's nothing that comes to anyone's surprise, I feel like, but I feel like that's all it needs, because part of what makes this so cool is that yes, everything looks and is shot exactly like the sitcom. So it looks like a sitcom when they are filming it, except for when they go to school or when they go to like the neighbor's house next door. Everything inside their home looks exactly like the old show. And I think that's incredible. Just like the way they shot it, the way they wrote the script, the actors all look spot on.
Incredible. I am amazed at the caliber of performances that are in this movie, especially from these younger actors playing all the kids. Like the only one I recognize is Christine Taylor, who plays Marsha, you know, from Zoolander and many other contemporary comedies. I don't know the other
Stiller's
actors.
Wife. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the other actors, but each of them, down to the littlest kids, are so precise in what they are doing.
Yeah. It's great.
Such a strength. Like, I think the movie is cast very well, even if the plot isn't original because it doesn't need to be. I think the script is pretty tight. There's stuff that is introduced and then called back later, and it was introduced in such a way that, at least to me as a little kid and me as an adult watching this movie again for the first time in like 15 years, like I didn't realize, oh, the carjacker guy is going to be part of the final race to get home at the end of the movie.
It was great. Yeah, I have to say I had a blast at this, not having seen this before, not really knowing what to expect. This was a lot of fun. It's a really easy, light movie that you can just kind of put on and enjoy. And I think that's really cool. That's a good thing. It's a strength of this movie. And then just from like looking up some of the actors, as I was like, who is this? Who plays the? They made a sequel to this one.
Yes, I also own the sequel.
Do you happen to know, is that one like just as enjoyable and fun? Or is it
to me
just
as
like,
a little kid, it was. I also have not seen it in quite a long time, but that one has that's like the Hawaiian vacation plot. Like Carol's ex-husband comes back, who they all believed was dead. Turns out he is actually alive. He comes back. He's trying to just bilk the Bradys for all their money. Everybody goes on a big family vacation to Hawaii. The kids find a cursed artifact. Greg and Marsha both fight over having the room in the attic. It's all the other stuff you remember. They probably break the horse statue in the second movie.
Probably.
I'm going to rewatch it, but I didn't remember it with enough clarity. Well, I just recalled the entire plot for you, but I'm like, let's just do the first one. I'm not also going to make you watch the sequel if I am not even certain that the first movie holds up to today. But I'll watch it on my own time and report back.
Yeah, we were thinking of watching it because this one was so enjoyable. We were like, why not? Let's maybe go watch that next week. But yeah, I guess that's to say, if you enjoy this first one, there is a sequel out there. And of course, this is Barbenheimer week. So you can also go see Barbie later this week, which is getting phenomenal reviews. So there you go.
Of course. Yeah, I thought this, out of all the movies I could think of, I could have gone for something like Legally Blonde that's more obvious. We have a main character who is
Mhm.
a Barbie peer. But this one I figured was the best example of these larger than life characters who exist in this larger than life world. It's another movie that has like exact set design trying to recreate something. And those characters just have to interact with the normal world.
Yeah, yeah. This feels very much in the spirit of Barbie. Um, so good stuff with that. I had a blast. I don't know if I have much else to say on this movie. Spoiler free. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Recommend. Definitely recommend.
Okay, good. I'm happy you liked it. This is one of the like core texts of little Melissa's movie going life.
Good stuff. Well, with that, we will take a quick break for some housekeeping. And when we come back, we will start diving into the movie a little bit more in depth. So stick around. We'll be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them. So we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot. We appreciate you. Thank you indeed. Over on the Pilots Club, our Patreon exclusive podcast, we talked about Cable Girls this month. It is a show on Netflix that helps to launch Netflix Spain. And it's like a Spanish soap opera set in the 1920s. About a number of women that take jobs as switchboard operators and all of the reasons for them doing so, all of the obstacles they have to overcome as women now in the workforce, as well as trying to steal money from the company and running into your exes and all sorts of stuff. It was an interesting, fun one to talk about for sure. So go check that out at our $3 tier and above. Right here on the review show last week, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but we got to talk about a favorite comic book of mine called The Many Deaths of Lila Starr. It's a graphic novel by Ramvi and Felipe Andrade. Beautiful artwork, beautiful colors, poetic writing that, talks a lot about the meaning of life and death and its place and importance in life. And that's one that has stuck with me in recent years and has made me think and has affected me quite a bit. So I recommend going to check that out. Over on the Captain's Log, this past week we got to talk about going to see movies like Joyride and Mission Impossible. We got to talk about some of the Superman Legacy casting that happened, and the actors' strike that also just got started this past week. So shout out to everyone who is on strike right now. We are definitely in support here at the Whatnauts. But then, last but not least, over on the Reactor Core, we still are going strong on our reactions to Secret Invasion. So if you are into that show, we will have our final installment on that, not next week, but the week after, in about 2 weeks' time here. And speaking of Mission Impossible, we recorded a Mission Impossible spoiler cast. So if you guys went to go see Dead Reckoning Part 1, that will be up by time this goes live. Should be up this afternoon, right after we record this. But yeah, by time this goes live, it will already be up. So go check it out. Yeah, that is about all of the housekeeping for you right now. So let's get into spoilers for the Brady Bunch. There you go. Can we start with the cameos? Because I think that's a good, like, heartwarming place to start with these. So you said that it sounds like there was a couple cameos that were filmed but did not make it in. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the ones that made it in are the original Alice, who still looks great for her age.
Oh, yeah.
And once you see her on screen, you realize how much this movie's Alice is, like, cast just looks just like her, is styled just like her. It's so nice. The original Greg, and then the joke at the end of the movie is like, kids, let's go visit Grandma. And then Grandma is Florence Henderson.
Absolutely.
And there were more. There might have been something else that I missed just because I went into the kitchen to get a pizza out of the oven.
I see. So you didn't even watch the movie. That's what Melissa's spoiling.
I'm like, there might have been somebody on screen for 2 minutes when I'm in the kitchen and I don't know them by voice.
Yeah, like those two specifically, Alice and the mom, those two were like in your face, like these are cameos, right? There might have been like one of the kids in the background or a teacher at school or something like that I just didn't recognize, that they did not. It didn't seem like, hey, this is a cameo, right? That's certainly a possibility, but I think seeing Alice, the original one, be the trucker that that Jan hitchhikes with is so sweet. They give each other life advice, and they have this heart to heart there, and it's just this like nice, warm, fuzzy feeling of just like, oh, it's the old Alice still taking care of the kids, right? And that I think was a blast. That is one of the highlights of the film. And then at the end when they go see Grandma, it is the original mom. And they play that one a little more for jokes, as she's just like, oh, look at you. And it looks like she's gesturing to all of the family, but she goes straight for Marsha. And it's just like, you've grown so much. You look so beautiful. This color looks great on you.
Marsha is clearly the Barbie of this movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then poor Jan, or we'll get to her in a sec. But then the mom like looks at her and it just goes like, get a hold of yourself. And then everything stops and she's fine. She's back to normal. And it's just like, what? This is ridiculous.
Right. When Grandma Florence Henderson tells Jan to cut the crap, that was, I think, the most extreme sentence I had ever heard in my life when I was like 7 years old watching
that. She said crap.
This might have been the first time I heard the word crap. I was watching this thinking about how there were like certain things I did get, or even if I didn't know specifically what it was, I was like, I know that is an adult joke. I can't tell you what the joke is, but I know that is one. And other things that like went absolutely over my head, and some things that like, to speak of the non-Brady cameos in the movie, Jan goes to see your school guidance counselor, who is RuPaul.
Yep.
The scene I always enjoyed, because RuPaul is like, what are you here to see me about? Drug addiction, teen pregnancy, bulimia? And Jan's like, I don't like wearing my glasses.
Yeah.
And RuPaul tries to give her, I think the character is Miss Cummings. And at the end, Miss Cummings like, well, try these things, try to, you're a middle child, try and change yourself up, change your look, change your feel, and call me when you get pregnant. Like, she just wants the most exciting, dramatic story out of the kid.
We have an issue here that we have to
right.
deal with.
And watching
right?
it again.
Get contacts.
Yes, right. Watching it again, I'm like, I think that's interesting that there is no specific reason why it has to be RuPaul in that scene. Like, RuPaul does a great job as a real presence.
Wait,
but
so
seems like it was scripted to be anybody. And I kind of like that it was a cameo that did not rely on you knowing who the person was. So even if you're 7 years old, the joke can still play on you.
Yeah. I've only ever been to one drag show. I don't really know anything about it or all that stuff. When did RuPaul start like coming into popularity, the mainstream, all of that stuff? 'Cause, like, would this be a couple years after? Like, would she be a hot commodity? Right.
They use her song. They use "You Better Work" cover girl. She says "You better work." Like, it seems like RuPaul is already a recognizable figure at the time this movie came out in 1995. So I would presume in the late 80s or early 90s.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Because like that's what it felt like to me, is that like this is it felt like having Hannibal Buress in Spider-Man. Right. I'm just like, oh, here's a comedian that everyone nowadays knows.
Yeah, that might just be what it is. Who's just a great, comedy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have to be doing their own. I don't want to say their own shtick, but doing something akin to their own act and their own other performances. Let's just get somebody we like who's got good energy, and the script stays how it was.
Yeah. But so this, I think, is a good segue to Jan and some of the more interesting things about the film, I think, but also maybe some of the missed opportunities. But also, that's not what this movie was, so I understand it. Anyways, Jan is the middle child of the girls, and she is kind of plagued with these inner voices, these almost shoulder angels that you don't see, you only hear. And it seems like she's going crazy, like she's losing it. And I thought that was one of the more interesting things about this take on the Brady Bunch here, is they start to introduce some kind of mental illness or some kind of something like that. But then they don't really ever do anything with it other than jokes, other than she makes some like strange face as she hears these inner voices, and then ends up like screaming
she is good at,
the last
the twitching
thing.
and like the demonic kill voices in her head.
I loved all of those scenes. I thought they were fantastic. But yeah, like, the movie is not one that is like truly wanting to explore like, hey, let's actually deconstruct the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
What kind of traumas does the middle child actually have here? What can we like? It's not a serious movie in that way. So this is all played for laughs. And at the end, when they go visit Grandma and she's just like, cut the crap, and she's fixed, it's also just like, well, yeah, all right, I guess it's the Brady Bunch. What was I expecting, right? But I do have to say, I thought that was one of the more like interesting things that they did here that was different from like the original sitcom, and not just like a heightened, like, I'm assuming they must have had like inner monologues on the old show.
Not that I remember. If they did, it must have been occasionally and not often enough that it certainly wasn't a narrative structure that the show used.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm it's just something that I feel like is kind of the time to have some kind of just the character hesitates to say something, and then you hear the like voiceover that's like, I wonder if he's really thinking about me, right?
Yeah.
It feels like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, his narration, right? Which he was also from the 60s and stuff like that. So it feels of the time for them to do that. And on one hand, I wish they kind of looked into that a little more and did something else with it, but it's also like this is just it's dumb fun, right?
Like the amount of deconstruction that this movie is up to is what if Mike Brady, the architect, designs every single building to just also look like his house?
Exact same, yeah. My house is perfect. The quintessential design, the quintessential example of architecture, right? The Vatican? No, my house.
Right. Like he doesn't even seemingly realize what he's doing. He doesn't do it on purpose. He just thinks, what's the best design I can come up with?
It's like a different
it's going
color,
to be this slant of roof and
bush. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Only the trees on the little model are different. And he's just like, well, that was strike one and that didn't work, but I'll try again tomorrow. Like he doesn't lose faith, while his boss at the architecture firm is just like, oh no. Oh, we can't. Yeah. This isn't a gas station. This isn't a burger restaurant. This isn't a gym.
That's also something that I think they nailed about the original show, is that shows like that, whenever there was an issue, when there was a problem, there was this odd sense of optimism about older shows like that, of like a stick-to-itiveness, right? If we just stick together, if we do the right thing, we can overcome it. And it's interesting because we're also watching Secret Invasion right now, Marvel's Secret Invasion. And there's kind of a scene where like that philosophy is discussed in that. And then another character reacts to that in a way that's just like, that's not a plan.
Yeah.
Like what are you talking about? Like you that won't work. But yeah, there's just this like sense of hope and optimism that this whole movie has, that it makes it fun, which is good.
Yeah. And I think that is why this movie was made, to celebrate the genuinely uplifting parts of the Brady Bunch. It's like poking holes in the show, but also looking at, why did this work? Why? And I was reading that it wasn't that big of a deal while it was airing, but it just became a huge hit in syndication.
Sure,
it was in the generations afterward, including right down to me, that like it made the thing iconic. And I think it's that the whole situation of there being a Brady Bunch is kind of a miracle. It like the opening song is, here's the story. It's presented like a fairy tale, like a fable.
Myth. Yeah.
Once there was a woman with 3 girls, hairs of gold, and once there was a man with 3 boys, and they met each other and they got married, and the whole family lived together in harmony. And Alice was there to love and support them also. Yes. Like the idea that these people would find each other and fit their lives together so neatly, like little puzzle pieces. And bring in this wonderful, loving caretaker like Alice, who's such a valued part of the family. They all like love and respect and admire Alice so much. There's never any complaining. Nobody's there against their will. It's just this perfect Camelot utopia, the Brady Bunch. Like, it's a celebration of small acts of magic like that. Like the Brady Bunch have never saved the world. They've never done anything more tremendous than probably having like a recycling fair at school or something like that. But just that these people found each other and created a sincerely loving home it's inspiring. I think that's why it has prevailed throughout the years, Does it prevail to this day? I don't know. I watched this with my roommate, who's a handful of years younger than I am, and she sits down and she looks at the family and she says, "So how many kids are there?" And I'm like, 6. Famously, there are 6.
There you go. Yeah. It's there's something about it that feels like escapism in a weird way. Like, no. Normally, when I think of like something you indulge in for escapism, it's a fantasy, right? It is superheroes. It's people with extraordinary powers. It's not a family with 6 kids. Right, like that's not the escapism.
Yes.
Like you can probably find a family with 6 kids, but the escapism is that they're all so in sync. They're all so, like, even when they have issues between siblings, it's the like the Jan is taking too long in the bathroom, or Marsha's in there for like, it's smaller stuff like that. But when it comes down to like problems that the family faces as a whole, it's the entire family. It's almost like the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Right? But there's 8 of them, and 9 if you include Alice, and 10 if you include Alice's boyfriend.
I also, yes.
And
Sam,
11 if you now include the carjacker, Eddie.
I love that Sam, who was Alice's boyfriend on the series, he was like the local butcher they would go to, and him and Alice would go out on dates, and she was always like, "Gee, I wish he would pop the question." It's the 70s. I certainly can't ask him. But I love when he just spends the night at the Brady house, and they find him in the kitchen, and he's like, "Oh, I was just delivering some meat." Like, he's just he's not interactive.
Incredibly horny. I was not expecting that at all.
The kids have not interacted with him yet to that point in the movie, although you imagine they've seen him, they know who he is. Whenever they talk about the family from that point on, Sam is just still around, and they're always like, Sam is part of us too. Like, if you are just in the Brady vicinity for long enough, you are a Brady. They accept you. You don't even have to ask. You don't have to do anything. You stand there long enough. You're a Brady too.
Yep.
And to talk about the horniness of it, you're right when you say fantasy. This is, I think, the thing I still dream about today. What if I just had a husband who was an architect, and we had a nice house and a bunch of kids? This truly is the dream. Right. And when I was a little kid, I also loved the Addams Family movies, and like that Addams Family show that was airing in the 90s too. Another thing that I couldn't tell apart from each other. That's just all one continuity for little Melissa. Like, Gomez and Morticia were like almost intimidatingly horny when you're that little. Like, it's too much for you to take. This Mike and Carol Brady, perfect amount of horniness to show a little kid who's barely understanding the concept of horniness, but understands it's the thing adults do. And she'll grow up and she'll be an adult once, and then maybe she can do this. Like, this is enough to not overwhelm a child, but to feel aspirational. If that makes sense. When I'm like 8 years old, Mike and Carol is the relationship I would like to grow up to have. I think they're very cute together. There's great chemistry between Shelley Long and Gary Cole. And one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie is when he thinks he's sold the architecture plans that are going to get the family $20,000 and they can stay in their house. And she's sitting on his lap, like whispering dirty talk into his ear. And he's just nodding like he's on a phone call, like, oh, would you? Oh, yes, I see.
Oh, yes, I see. It's like, that's the thing, is there's so many euphemisms in here, some more obvious than others, but they make so many jokes that are meant to be like euphemisms that just aren't your typical euphemisms. That's like, why would you use that as euphemism? Like, what is going on here? And it makes for like the most wholesome horniness.
Yes.
Like that is the thing. There are there is one character, or no, there are two characters that are a little bit more on the like, this is actually horny side.
Yes.
There's I don't remember her name, but the neighbor's wife that just is kind of into
Tina.
all of the Brady boys, all of
the
them.
The great Jean Smart, yes.
Yeah. And then the like high school health teacher who the middle Brady has a crush on.
She's just presenting them a health lesson, and she calls on one of the kids, and it's this like tall, beautiful, busty woman with like some sort of a sensuous accent. She's like, Peter, why won't you come up to the board? And take the pointer and trace the journey a sperm takes through the female reproductive system. And like his eyes cross and he faints. And then at the dance, he's like got his hands up in a panic and he accidentally runs right into her and his hands are at like boob level. And he like faints again. It's like the joke is regarding her, but like she is not the same force that Jean Smart is. I thought you were going to talk about Marsha's lesbian friend Noreen.
Her too. But even at the end, when the movie's all done and they're doing the end credits, they have the like 9 cube TV thing where all the other characters are coming into everyone else's thing to Marsha is interrupting Jan's cube and Jan is like, no, this is mine, like get back.
Right. I love that. I love the two Marshas.
Right, and then Marsha is in her own, and I forget what's happening in her actual
Noreen is there. Noreen shows up and like tries to like put a hand over her shoulder and like touch her boob.
But then for the middle Brady boy, it's the health teacher that comes back in, and he's like cuddling her and caressing her, and his head is like right on her chest, and she's just like, what is happening here? Like I don't know. Like there's stuff like that I thought was really like, it's more blatant, but I thought it was really funny. And then of course then to see her like at the dance when the singer I'm not familiar with, but is very
Davy
obviously
Jones
like an older singer.
Yes.
Yeah, like an older singer from the old era, and all the like all the women on staff just completely are fawning over him, and it's just like, oh Lord, this is ridiculous.
I do want to talk about that. I think that was a plot in the original series, Marsha promising her school that she'd get Davy Jones to perform at the dance, back when Davy Jones was the star of the time. And then he does do a guest episode. I like that the same thing happens, but she's the only one who wants Davy Jones.
He wants
she thinks he is the absolute most, and like nobody else cares. I love that they bring Davy Jones in and he does an entire song. It's not a bit. They don't cut away. He sings for like a whole 3 minutes. And like the grunge band that was performing at the dance like backs him up, so you get him singing this beautiful like classic 60s ballad with this modern like rock grunge backing. Like that's a sincerely great song that they make in this movie. And I think that's just a lovely thing to do for the late Davy Jones, is like he's not just briefly in here. He gets to do an entire very well produced song. And then I love the joke at the end when the Bradys go to the talent show. And again, it's them and like a grunge band. And they do this like bright, sparkly costumes, like shiny, happy variety show number. And then the host is confused when he's like, the winners are the Brady Bunch. And then you cut to the judges and it is Davy Jones and 2 other monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah. That's why they won.
That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, like they do all sorts of horny stuff, even with the lesbian friend that Marsha has. She is the like typical like 90s butch lesbian, and Marsha just does not pick up on this at all, period. and they give her a good ending. It's not like she's just like
that. Yes,
shunned by the end of this because that's the 90s and tough break kid. But no, like there's another girl that kind of connects with her, and they get a happy ending. They get to hook up and become a couple. It's great.
Right. I remembered Noreen, but I didn't remember everything they did with her. She's an endearing character. She feels specific. She's not like exactly a cookie cutter stereotype. And the movie seems to be on her side largely. Right. And like when she stands up and like defends Marcia and like punches a guy who's being inappropriate with her, and then Marcia thinks it was like the other boy she was at the dance with and is like, "Oh, Charlie, thank you," and like goes off with him. Noreen just starts crying. And then this other girl, I think it's like the big man on campus. It's like his girlfriend goes up to Noreen and like pulls a tissue out of her bra and hands it to her. And those two have a connection. And I like at the end during the talent show, that girl like gets up from her seat and goes and sits next to her. Noreen. Yeah, like it feels like a very sweet, sort of down to earth, very grounded thing to happen in the midst of all this. I am very happy that Noreen gets a happy ending out of this.
Yeah, this for being a 90s movie, I feel like this is a very inclusive film. Because even in the neighborhood, there was a gay couple that literally, they don't have a speaking part. We don't know anything about them, but they are part of the neighborhood that all, as we learned, they all like each other. They all stick up for one another. They protect one another. Like, it's just inclusive in like smaller ways that I almost don't expect a 90s film to really do. I guess I think after watching The Watermelon Woman not too long ago, from the little bit that I know, it seems like the 90s was also kind of there was a major push for like queer cinema and stuff like that. And I guess even with the inclusion of RuPaul, right?
Yeah.
And the drag scene. So it's not like unfamiliar to 90s movies. But for something that feels like such a mainstream, I don't know if I could say this is a mainstream 90s movie, right? But it feels more like that than a like indie cinema. Like here's a queer, right? It's meant to be styled after mainstream 90s movies.
I can imagine that the movie has an awareness of the Bradys as an icon in like camp culture and how that is adjacent to queer culture, and like that's how they got there. I don't know, but I think it is nice that the Bradys truly love and welcome all people. There's nobody they turn away except for the guy who puts his hand on Marcia's shoulder and she's like, "That's third base. I don't go that far."
Right. Yeah. Man, I had fun with this. I laughed a lot. There's so many interesting just each like one individual scene I feel like has so many callbacks to the original show, or just something that would have happened in there. Even Marcia getting hit in the face with the football and her nose is all mashed and it's flat, and she's like, "No, I can't go to the dance," right? She like completely forgot she already said yes to another boy only to be nice to him, right? There's just I feel like each and every scene has so much that's just like, this feels almost like perfectly crafted to be the Brady Bunch movie.
A lot of it is taken directly from the show. Getting hit in the nose with a football, Greg trying to become the rock star Johnny Bravo. This is all from the original show. I think Johnny Bravo, we know, from Cartoon Network, was named after this, I think.
There you go, yeah.
I like that the Bradys always act authentically like themselves. The jokes are all around the Brady Bunch, but it's not like one of them picks up a magazine and is like, Pearl Jam, what do you think that means? Like they are not doing contemporary of the time jokes. They are not breaking who they are in spirit. The movie truly is, it is exactly them as you remember them.
Yeah.
They are in a contemporary landscape. The landscape has to mold to fit them. They're not going to mold to fit it. They are not changing.
Absolutely. You know what this also kind of feels like? I guess I could just save this for my recommendations at the end, but it also feels like Emperor's New Groove in a way, right? Where like
explain,
they're wanting to renovate the land and build something on here, and so they have to like go on an adventure in air quotes to kind of solve that problem, to either raise money or change back from llama form into human form, right? It feels kind of like that. Like they are dealing with a similar situation in their own way, where the kids end up raising $110 of the $2,000 that they owe.
So cute.
Which I was kind of not hoping, but expecting that money to come back somehow in a weird way. Like, oh, thank God we had
they did of $110.
Yeah. Like, is that at the end when they all go out to eat? Is that the money they use to like go get their food or something? I don't know. I just, who knows? But yeah.
Yeah, and they get the $20,000 from the Search for the Stars contest. I talked about the Davy Jones number. I love the numbers that the Bradys do. The one in the Sears, so perfect that it is
That was
Sears.
A great one. Yes.
Just them like all like moving their arms around in synchrony, and like they're going up and down the escalator and they're singing into like the TV display, and it's the grid of 9. And Michael McKean turns his face, and there just they are. Oh, no. They're haunting him.
Yeah.
And the number they do at the talent show, both, I would watch those bits over and over again when I was a little kid. I think because they are so big and bold and sincere. Like the numbers themselves are not jokes. It is only the fact that they're juxtaposed against everything around them that makes them jokes. Yes. Like, I think when I was a little kid, I loved how, like, absolutely, truly sunny all of them were. But I also thought it was funny that they were out of place. Like, watching these movies again, watching the movie and seeing those numbers again, I'm like, I remember how high I felt as a little kid watching these. Which may be a Melissa-specific feeling, to watch a musical number and feel like you've ascended to another plane. Like, you can do anything. You're so hyper already because you're 7. And then you watch a bunch of people in sparkly outfits sing and dance. That's all you want to do. You want your life to be that.
And then the dad is an architect? Wow, what a life.
I want all of it.
Golly, what a life.
I was like second generation big crazy family. Like, I'm like the middle child of 3, and my older brother's much older than I am. So like he went away to college when I was 5. And then my nephew was born a couple years later. So in that way, we would go out and we'd always have to explain the structure of our family. Like, we'd take family photos, us kids, and my older brother would have to be like, all right, so it's me, my little brother and sister, and my son. Please photograph us for our parents/grandparents for this Christmas, please. But my mom was one of 14 kids. And every year we'd have this big family Christmas party with like all of them and all of their kids. And like that, I loved it so much. I'm still like, I go to every single family event I am invited to. I really love to spend time with my extended family. And I love that there are so many of them. I love a big group of people. I think this is what I was chasing watching so much Brady Bunch and Full House, is that like I was not actively in my day-to-day among the big crazy family, but I got a taste of that like once or twice a year, and I loved it, and I always wanted more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you had a connection to that where it felt familiar, but also was not yours. So it is
Exactly.
this like peek
Familiar,
into
but
this
still
alternate,
aspirational.
yeah,
Yes, I want
peek
more
into
of
an
it, 'cause
alternate
I don't have enough
universe.
already. How
Yeah.
did you have any thoughts on this as an only child?
I mean, like I said, I've seen some Brady Bunch back when it was on Nick at Night. I'm sure it still is somehow, somewhere
I don't
on
know. I don't
TV
know
land. If
I
that
don't know if
channel
it
still
still
exists.
pops up or if it has moved generationally far enough ahead that now it's just Malcolm in the Middle. And like that's what Nick at
Yeah,
Night is now. No clue.
yeah. But no, the Brady Bunch was never really like a favorite of mine or something I was interested in. The stuff that I ended up liking, like the older shows that I ended up liking, was like Get Smart, and like it was like Spies, right, and stuff like that. Even though it's
Yes.
like dumb comedy Spies, that's kind of what I enjoyed, and I think that also. I mean, you can see now that I like crime shows, I like spy movies, I like thrillers, like I like that stuff. But even older show, like I liked the Munsters, um, but I don't know, like I was still also much more like, just give me the new stuff, like give me Cartoon Network, give me Dexter's Lab, give me Powerpuff Girls. So I don't know, I never felt like I had that same connection, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But
I
I was going to say, to go back to the song and dance that they do in
Yeah.
Sayers. They're like they feel like they have this moment of triumph. They just sold one of his designs for it. It's gonna end up being a gym.
Yes.
We learn
And then Michael
later
McKean
that
goes and
falls
talks him out of
through.
that. Yeah.
But when they think they've won, they're like, family, let's get ready. We're going out to Sears. And they're all just like, yeah,
Yes.
Sears, which I thought was hilarious. And then, yeah, they do this whole song and dance. And the other part of the joke that I think really works here is that everyone else is just looking at them like they are freaks.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening with these people? Like, what is going on? And that's really, really funny. And then, yeah, they go to like the TV section where they have the like the camcorders and the hand cams that are all hooked up to the TV so they can be on screen. And they're all like much closer to the
Yes.
cameras than they probably should be. So everything is like blown out of proportion and stuff, which I think is a great, like, just that like 2-minute clip while they are singing and dancing and their pictures are all distorted on these television screens. It's such a great like encapsulation of what the idea for this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is looking at them strange because they are out of time and out of place. There's all this newfangled technology around them that just kind of makes them look even more distorted than what but they are just normal, right? That's just that it is the Brady Bunch that you know from the old show. And yeah, then they end up doing the 9 TV grid. They're each in there. Like it's a good special moment, I think, for that show. And like, what's a modern way that we can depict this? And I think it works incredibly well.
Another bit I love in the trip to Sears is that Alice finds this big, sharper image, like massage chair, and everybody rushes over just to look at Alice in the chair. Like nobody else wants it. They're not like, oh, is it my turn next? There's like, wow, Alice, congratulations. A massage.
Mom said it's my turn on the
Alice.
Xbox.
Right. No, they're just happy for her to have this experience, and they're not honing in on it at all.
Yeah.
Even in these small ways, the Brady Bunch is so generous to each other, except for Jan.
Yeah, they just have everyone's so mean to Jan. She just gets the worst of it all the time. She has these terrible nightmares where she tries to do something like vengeful or vindictive, and it just goes completely wrong, and it backfires on her. Like there's one, she wakes up from bed and has the largest pair of scissors you've ever seen in your life, and she starts cutting Marcia's hair, and she's just like, like, I will sell it and make $20,000, and I'm an evil minion. And she like what's the youngest
Cindy
name? She wakes up and is like, what are you doing? You can't do this. And then that's when like the rest of the family comes in, like, what's happening? And they're all just like, oh, Marcia, what beautiful hair you have. I love the new haircut. And she's just sitting there like, no, I wanted it to be terrible and awful. And it's so fun. It's so good.
I understand why you don't, but on a personal level, it's shocking to me that anybody doesn't know all of these characters' names. I know them like they are my own family.
You know me. I'm terrible with names, period.
I do want to say briefly that I love that the two littlest kids, Cindy and Bobby, get their own stuff to do. They're just sort of pushed to the side and only included in group scenes. Like every cast member gets a sufficient amount of stuff to do. They're very fair jumping around to everybody. There's maybe like a touch less Carol than everybody else, but Shelley Long kills it with just the reaction shots to every time like Mike is talking and giving those preposterous pep talks that like go around in circles like, wherever you go,
like that, Dad.
There you are. And just all the nodding and smiling. Nobody's ever nodded and smiled like Shelley Long.
When they do the number in Sayers and they're all on their TV screens, she has this look on her face, this like she's like almost winking and nodding, but she's just like like that the whole time, and it is just distorted and blown out on the TV, and it looks ridiculous. She has some great facial expressions. And then her just about to speak, and then no, he continues, and then your father's right. Like just it's no matter what he says, she just has to be like, your father's right.
Yes. And years ago we watched Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. In my opinion, the finest of all Scooby-Doo adaptations, which also has a very sort of meta look at its original story. And Gary Cole plays. Absolutely. There's never been one Scoobier. Gary Cole plays the mayor of the town, who is also Fred's dad. I feel like you draw a direct line from this performance to
probably
this is the guy we get to play Fred's dad.
Yeah, probably, because even the oldest Brady boy, he also seems like Greg. A Fred character, right?
He's got real Fred energy.
Yeah, it's Ken.
One ass got short.
Kenergy, right? That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if I have much else to say on the Brady Bunch besides stuff of just, it's good. I had fun. It's hilarious. Go watch it.
I did have such a good time watching this again. My roommate had never seen it, barely knew Brady's, didn't know how many there were. I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It aged fairly well. There's this weird bit where Mike sells one of his designs to a Japanese firm, and I think that's the entirety of the joke, is that they are Japanese. I'm like, what is the punchline here? Anything? Like, that's like the scratchiest moment in the movie for me, at least. Like we said, there's things like Noreen getting a happy ending and like there being a gay couple just as part of all of the other couples in the neighborhood that are like, that's relatively advanced for 1995.
Yeah. I had a blast with this. It was funny. Like, I was expecting something along the lines of this, especially since you were pitching it for like our Barbenheimer week here. But I don't think I was expecting it to be as funny and as enjoyable as it was, as it turned out to be. I watched it with my girlfriend, and we were both just being like, this is a lot more enjoyable than we were expecting. Like, this is really good. So yeah, good stuff there. Well, Melissa, is it time for bingo?
Yeah, do we have anything we can cross off on bingo?
To be honest, I don't think we do.
No.
I kind of looked at mine as I was pulling this up earlier, and I don't think there is anything that we can do. No villain with a pet, no locked room mystery, no big puddle splash, no treasure map, no conspiracy.
If only. The second one might have a treasure map in it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see something like that, or some... It might not necessarily be a red string conspiracy board, but I could see something like that in a Brady Bunch thing, or even like a no time to eat breakfast scenario there, right? Or a big puddle splash as only Jan gets hit by the puddle, and Marcia is just left there perfect, and she's just like, why is it always Marcia? Marcia. Anyways, not much of a bingo update for you there. So, Melissa, let's get to recommendations for people that enjoyed this. What else might they like?
I think the opposite side of the coin from the Brady Bunch movie would be the Addams Family movie from the 90s, which is similarly a loving, authentic family that is so wholly themselves, just placed into a world of other people who do not know how to deal with them.
Right, yeah.
Barry Sonnenfeld's The Addams Family and Addams Family Values, the sequel, just as good, if not better. Outstanding, the both of them.
Yeah.
Perhaps the finest of these 90s movies based off old sitcoms.
Sure.
And a similar 90s loving parody movie of something from the 60s that contrasts its 60s-ness by being as 90s as possible also. So it's like you're watching two period pieces in one. Austin Powers. Love an Austin Powers. Yeah. I think that a movie I loved when I was a kid, even though I didn't understand most of it. I just liked it aesthetically. I liked the energy of Austin Powers.
You had not discovered that I'm older, James Bond yet and what it was.
I knew he was. Like, some of the things I could look at and know that was a James Bond spoof. Just from, I like cobbled together knowledge of what James Bond was from every parody I saw on everything until like 6 years ago. When I just started getting into them on my own. Or I guess Spectre came out in like 2015. And so yeah.
Good old Johnny English was the one that Melissa saw and was just like, wow, I really need to go see James Bond.
I didn't see that one. Not experience with Johnny English. But again, you look at it and you're like, that's a spoof of that James Bond guy. One of these days I gotta find out about him. I also want to shout out 2 episodes of the X-Files.
Sure.
There is a 2-part episode of X-Files in like season 6, I think, called Dreamland 1 and 2, where they go to some secret like military, some Area 51 type part in America. And something happens where Mulder and another FBI agent played by Michael McKean like switch bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I saw that in reruns when I was, like, 16. And even though, of course, I'd seen him in this and other stuff up until then, that was when I truly sat up and took notice of comedy legend Michael McKean. So, just letting you know, if you want more 90s nostalgia in the form of watching old episodes of X-Files, check those 2 out. Also, the second to last ever episode of the X-Files, in, like, the original Fox run, when the show concluded in 2002, the final episode of the show before the finale. What are they spending their penultimate episode on? Michael Emerson plays a guy with psychic powers who uses them to manifest the Brady Bunch. Like the way this episode goes, it's called like Sunshine Days. And somebody calls in saying, "Hey, I had to deliver a pizza to this house. I swear it looked like the Brady Bunch house. I swear when they opened the door to collect the pizza, that was the Brady Bunch house. And I heard laughing and I saw little footsteps running. And I think that was Bobby and Cindy. And I don't know how to explain this, but I think the Brady Bunch is real now." And like Scully goes and investigates it. And they find that Michael Emerson from Lost is this guy who like had this really terrible childhood and loved the Brady Bunch and developed these omnipotent psychic powers where he could manifest anything. And he made the Brady Bunch real so that he could live with them.
Amazing.
And like like they go up to like assistant director Skinner. Everybody's around saying like, "Gee, this is real." And like that's one of the tipping points in the X-Files. In getting all the people besides Mulder to believe that magic, like sci-fi stuff, is real, is this episode where the Brady Bunch happens. Just the fact that that is the penultimate episode of this historic sci-fi show. It's not just one of them. It's like the last one they fit in before the finale.
You will believe that the Brady is a bunch.
You will remember a Bradykin bunch. Just wanted to make sure people knew that happened.
Interesting.
Out there in the
Okay.
world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We already mentioned the Flintstone comics.
Yes.
They are incredible. Please go pick them up, check them out. They are some of the funniest comics that DC has published in the last decade ish. I think you could add the Flintstones movie, the 90s movie in on that, right? Or is that early 2000s?
No, that's 90s.
Yeah, I thought so.
I watched that a handful of years ago, and I can't speak to the quality of the film as a whole, but the production design, the costumes,
I remember
the way
you
that
saying
movie
that, yeah.
looks, it is artistically a triumph in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, go see Barbie, watch the Brady Bunch movie, watch the Flintstones, just all three of these for the set design.
Yeah. And then that odd one that I pulled out closer towards the end there, go watch Emperor's New Groove. Like, kind of almost a similar plot. Kind of without
Sure.
Cusco's poison. The poison for Cusco. The poison specifically designed for Cusco.
It's been 20 years since we've had a good man turns into a llama movie.
Well, there was Tusk.
There's also the lobster.
Yeah.
Watch those three next to each other.
Next week on the review show.
What a triple feature.
Yeah, let's see. Anything else that I'm thinking of that I can recommend that would fit with the like Barbie energy?
I mentioned Legally Blonde.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I have anything in my comics. I don't think so. I think that's where I will leave things then for my recommendations. I think those are a handful of good things.
Mm-hmm.
Handful of good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, well, I did mention Get Smart. There is that Get Smart movie with Steve Carell. That one I think was early 2000s-ish.
having a fun time with that. Yeah.
Something there. So yeah, there you go. Those would be my recommendations. Melissa, normally,
yes,
this would be my pitch for next week, but we have kind of a special occasion.
Yes.
Futurama is coming back, and Futurama has always been a show that I like and enjoy, even though I've barely seen any of it. You, on the other hand, have seen a lot more.
I have seen all of it.
Yeah, you're also a big Simpsons fan. But I remember when Futurama first came out, when it first got canceled, when it got canceled again after it came back. Like I've been around for its history, if that makes sense. So yeah, you have a handful of episodes of Futurama that we're gonna check out for this next week.
Yeah. This is akin to what we did last year, where for Halloween we each picked 3 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Something I'd like to do more often for these long-running episodic shows that are just cumbersome to talk about in their entirety. Do these survey episodes where we just pick a handful of them and talk about
Sampler
those.
platter.
Yeah, and you graciously let me pick all of our Futurama episodes. I did 7 of them. It was really hard for me to cut one, so we're doing 7 instead of our usual 6. I'm sending you that list right now. This includes, I gave you the episode numbers as they appear on Hulu.
Okay. Cool.
If you're watching on another platform, it might be slightly different. Because the show ran 4 seasons on Fox, and then it did 4 direct-to-DVD movies that were then cut up into like 3 half-hour episodes each, and like those aired somewhere, and like Hulu counts those as like another season of the show. It's like the season is off if you watch it there versus if you just like buy everything. Like I physically own all of Futurama. So the episodes we were covering are Parasites Lost. I picked this one because I saw the episode list for the new season of Futurama premiering on Hulu on the 28th, and that includes an episode called Parasites Found. So it seems like they're returning to this classic episode.
Cool.
We're doing Parasites Lost, The Luck of the Fryish, Roswell That Ends Well, The Sting, a personal favorite of mine, and then from the later Comedy Central seasons, I have The Late Philip J. Fry, another personal favorite, The Prisoner of Benda, which is the episode that invented a math theorem. I know I've mentioned that to you before, so I wanted us to watch that episode. And then Meanwhile, which is the series finale of Futurama up until its current reboot. So let's watch the last bit of Futurama they did. The last time they thought they were ending the show for good.
Perfect.
So we're going to watch those 7 episodes, try to get a mix of both the homes that the show had, different. There is a lean towards the more emotional episodes because those are my favorites, but I try to put a couple like Roswell That Ends Well is one of the best just plain comedy episodes of the show. So I hope we've got a fair sample of everything.
Cool. Good. I'm excited. Yeah, I've only really caught random episodes. I couldn't really tell you which ones those are, but I've always really enjoyed Futurama. I like it a lot. So I'm excited. Welcome back, Futurama, is what I'll say there. But yeah. Cool. Well, with that, also just a reminder that I guess the week after this, we will be covering the 4th and final season of The Good Place as our end of the month special. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, with that, I think that about wraps us up for this week. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities.
There you go. You can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and on Threads. If you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter and at the Whatnauts official on Threads. So please go like, share, subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got some more videos for you right over there. Please go check those out. That would help us out a ton as well. But this has been the Palindromatic episode 262 of the Whatnauts review show. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.